It's 7 a.m. Hand over those pool keys right now, or you're under arrest for trespassing. Officer Brent Blackwood barks as his patrol car screeches into my driveway, hand on his holster. Right behind him, his wife Constance, the HOA queen bee in her silk robe, grinning ear to ear, arms crossed like she's watching her favorite show. Some people just don't belong in a neighborhood like ours. They're ready to cuff me because my kids dared to use the community pool we pay $300 a month for. They're kids, they practically live there, splashing around every single day like they own the place. His stale cigarette breath hits my face as he leans in, thinking I'll fold. They had no idea who they were messing with. I've got a very particular set of skills, and this smug, power-tripping couple is about to get a lesson they'll never forget. What would you do? Drop your craziest HOA story below. Karma's coming and it's sweet. But let me back up 3 weeks and tell you how I ended up facing down a corrupt cop in my own driveway. My name is Miles Dalton, and after 15 years of infiltrating drug cartels and organized crime rings for the FBI, I thought I'd earned myself a quiet retirement. My wife, Elena, she's a pediatric nurse who'd spent way too many sleepless nights wondering if I'd come home alive, finally convinced me to hang up the badge and find some peace. So, we bought this modest ranch house in Willowbrook Estates. Nothing fancy, just a 1,800 feet slice of suburban heaven where our kids Sophie 12 and Jake 9 could finally have the normal childhood they deserved. The kind of place where the biggest threat was getting a parking ticket, not a bullet. The neighborhood smelled like fresh-cut St. Augustine grass and weekend barbecues. You could hear sprinklers hitting concrete sidewalks in that rhythmic pattern that screams safe suburbia. The HOA mandated brick mailboxes stood like identical centuries, every garage door painted regulation beige. It was everything we dreamed of, boring, predictable, safe, until I met our self-appointed neighborhood dictator. Day 3. After moving in, I'm unloading my work truck when this white Mercedes SUV with HOA 1 vanity plates screeches up like she's responding to a 5-alarm fire. Out steps Constance Blackwood, blonde hair that costs more than most people's mortgage payments, designer workout clothes, and the kind of fake smile that says, "I'm about to make your life hell." "Welcome to Willowbrook," she announces, clutching a clipboard like it's Excalibur. "I'm Constance Blackwood, HOA president. We have a problem." She slaps this official-looking violation notice in my hand, thick card stock that probably cost $50 just to print. Commercial vehicles prohibited in residential driveways. Section 4.7.3, $200 daily fine until you comply. Now I've been threatened by cartel bosses who were more polite than this woman. "Ma'am, I see contractors and landscapers parked in driveways all over. Authorized service vehicles." She cuts me off. "Your business hasn't been approved." That's when I noticed the beautiful irony sitting in her driveway. A police patrol car just permanently parked there like it belonged. "Interesting," I said. "Is that your husband's cruiser?" Her smile turned predatory. "Officer Blackwood works very hard keeping undesirable elements out of our community. Some vehicles enhance security, others, she eyed my truck like it was radioactive waste. Others attract the wrong kind of people. The message hit me like a slap. Their cop car belonged. My work truck didn't. Some residents were welcome. Others were barely tolerated. But here's where Constance made her first real mistake that weekend, while Elena was getting the kids settled and dreaming about pool parties and neighborhood barbecues. Sophie and Jake discovered the community amenities. They came home breathless with excitement about the playground, the tennis court, and especially the sparkling blue pool that looked like something from a resort. "Dad, can we go swimming tomorrow?" Sophie asked, eyes bright with hope. "The pool's huge," Jake added. "And there's a diving board." Elena smiled for the first time in months. "That sounds perfect, baby." So Sunday afternoon we head to the pool with our new access cards, the kids practically bouncing out of their skin with excitement. The smell of chlorine and sunscreen filled the air as families lounged around, living that sober band dream. That's when Constance appeared like a storm cloud on a sunny day. "Excuse me," she called out, striding over in her designer cover-up. "Pool access is currently under review for new residents." Elena looked confused. "Under review background verification process," Constance said with that same fake smile. "I'll need you to surrender those access cards pending approval." My kids' faces fell like someone had just canned Christmas. Other families pretended not to watch, but you could feel them holding their breath. That's the moment I knew this wasn't about HOA rules or neighborhood standards. This was about power. And Constance Blackwood had just declared war on my family. Monday morning, 7:00 a.m. sharp, I'm making coffee when a patrol car screeches into my driveway with all the subtlety of a SWAT raid, tires crunching against the gravel like an angry beast announcing its arrival. Officer Brent Blackwood climbs out like he's responding to an armed robbery. 6 feet 2 inches, buzz cut going gray, 20 years of authority complex packed into a uniform that's seen better days. His hand rests on his service weapon as he approaches. A textbook intimidation move I'd watched corrupt cops use from Chicago to Miami. The doorbell rings once, sharp and demanding. I open the door in my bathrobe, coffee mug in hand, playing sleepy suburban dad. "Morning, officer, everything okay?" "Mr. Dalton?" he barks, whipping out a notepad like he's conducting a murder investigation. "Received a complaint about criminal trespassing on HOA property. Need you to surrender your pool access cards and amenity keys now." The smell of his cheap aftershave mixed with stale cigarette breath hits me as he steps closer. Years ago, during an undercover op in Newark, I'd learned that nervous cops always overcompensate with aggression. Brent's checking all the boxes, sweating despite the cool morning. Won't make direct eye contact. Shifting weight like he's expecting a fight. This isn't confident police work. This is barely controlled intimidation. "Officer," I say calmly, pulling out my phone and hitting record. "What's the incident report number for this complaint?" His face tightens. In my FBI days, I discovered that demanding documentation makes corrupt officials panic. They're used to people just rolling over. "This is official HOA business," he snaps. "Then why are you here in uniform threatening arrest?" I ask, keeping my voice level. Honestly, I've interrogated cartel lieutenants with better poker faces than this guy. Behind him, Constance watches from their yard like a director admiring her leading man's performance. She's got her phone out too, probably planning to post this victory on the neighborhood Facebook group. Brent's getting flustered now. "Look, just cooperate and this doesn't become a bigger problem. Time for my first counter move. I disappear inside for 30 seconds and return with our property deed and HOA covenant documents. Yeah, I'd done my homework after yesterday's pool ambush. From my organ, ized crime cases, I'd learned that bullies hate when their targets know the law. "Officer Blackwood," I say, spreading the documents on my doorstep, where the rough texture of the concrete reminds me of countless crime scene evidence layouts. "These show pool access as a permanent property right. The HOA can't revoke ownership privileges without due process hearings and written notice." He actually stumbles backward, clearly not expecting suburban dad to know property law. The HOA board meets Thursday. This will be resolved then, but Brent can't resist one final power play. As he turns to leave, he leans in close enough that I can smell the desperation on him. "Mr. Dalton, I'd be real careful about causing trouble around here. We take community safety very seriously. Translation, step out of line and I'll find an excuse to arrest you." After he drives off, I stand processing what just happened. A sworn police officer had just abused his badge to enforce HOA rules, textbook deprivation of rights under color of law. I'd helped prosecute federal cases on exactly this charge. That evening, I launched my own intelligence operation. Time to map the neighborhood's power structure and see how deep this corruption went. Mrs. Dorothy Brighton was watering her prize roses when I strolled by. Mid-60s retired teacher, the kind of careful politeness that screamed, Learned to keep quiet the hard way. Beautiful garden, I said, genuinely admiring her work. Thank you, she replied, but her eye darted toward the Blackwood house like she expected surveillance. You're the new family. How are you settling in? The pause told me everything. We've had some interesting conversations with the HOA. Dorothy's face went pale. She glanced around, then whispered, the Hendersons. Young couple lived here 2 years. They got tired of the enforcement visits. Enforcement visits? Officer Blackwood found reasons to stop by. Patio furniture violations, holiday decoration complaints, noise issues nobody else heard. Her grip tightened on the garden hose. Funny how these problems only happen to certain families. They moved to Cedar Park last spring. Then she pointed toward the corner house. Jim Santos runs the auto shop on Maple Street. Same thing happened to him. Police visits about his backyard shed being non-compliant. He's too scared to even talk about it now. The pattern crystallized. Constance identified undesirable residents. Brent provided the badge-powered harassment. Most people facing systematic police intimidation would cut their losses and flee. As I walked home, the evening air thick with the sound of automatic sprinklers and the distant splash of pool parties I wasn't allowed to attend, I smiled for the first time all day. The Blackwoods had a system, but systems have weaknesses, and after 15 years of dismantling criminal organizations, I knew exactly how to exploit them. Thursday night. The community center smells like stale coffee and industrial floor cleaner. As I walk into what can only be described as a kangaroo court. The metal folding chairs screech against the linoleum, like nails on a chalkboard as residents file in. Well, some residents. Funny how the usual crowd of 30 had mysteriously shrunk to 12 people, and half of them were wearing Blackwood for safety buttons. I'm starting to think Constance missed her calling as a campaign manager for third world dictators. Constance sits at the head table like a queen holding court, flanked by her loyal board members. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead, casting that harsh institutional glow that makes everyone look guilty of something. Emergency session called to order, she announces, banging a wooden gavel with the enthusiasm of a judge sentencing criminals. We're here to address serious security concerns brought to our attention by local law enforcement. I'm sitting in the back row, notebook ready, watching this performance unfold. In my undercover days, I'd learned that corrupt organizations always rush their biggest power grabs. They know if people have time to think, they'll start asking inconvenient questions. Mr. Dalton has been observed threatening a police officer and violating multiple community standards, she continues, her voice dripping with fake concern. For the safety of our families, I'm proposing immediate revocation of all amenity access pending a comprehensive behavioral assessment. The room goes quiet, except for the ancient air conditioning unit rattling like it's about tea. Oh, give up. A few neighbors won't even look at me. Dorothy Brighton studies her hands like they hold state secrets. That's when board member Patricia Mills raises her hand. Don't we need proper notice for emergency powers? Constance's smile could freeze hell. Section 12(4) allows immediate action when community safety is threatened. I stand up, pulling out my phone. Point of order. What's the specific nature of these alleged threats? You recorded a police officer without consent. Board member Frank Torres pipes up. Here's where my FBI legal training kicked in. During surveillance operations, I'd memorized recording laws in 12 states. Actually, Frank, Texas is a one-party consent state. Recording police interactions is constitutionally protected. The sound of shuffling papers fills the awkward silence. Clearly, nobody had done their homework. But Constance isn't giving up. The motion passes 4-1, she announces, barely giving anyone time to vote. I looked around the room, only 5 board members present, but I'd studied the HOA governing documents like they were evidence files. Constance, you don't have a quorum. Emergency votes require 7 members. Her face turned the color of a fire engine. This meeting is adjourned. Also, I continued standing with my bylaws copy. Background check requirements violate Texas Property Code Section 2,020,004, discriminatory access restrictions. That got everyone's attention. A few neighbors actually looked up, probably realizing someone was ting back for the first time. As people filed out, Tyler Brooks from Pine Street lingered. When the room cleared, he approached cautiously. "That recording law thing," he whispered, glancing around. "My wife and I have some videos you might want to see." The next morning, Tyler and Madison came over with evidence that made my FBI heart sing. Crystal clear footage of Officer Blackwood's midnight wellness checks, flashlight beams through windows, him photographing license plates, even testing door handles like a burglar casing houses. He said neighbors reported suspicious activity, Madison explained, her voice shaking. "But we just asked questions about pool maintenance expenses at the last meeting." There it was, the pattern. This wasn't random harassment. This was systematic witness intimidation. But then Tyler dropped the real bombshell. "Madison works at First National Bank. She processed some HOA checks that seemed weird." Madison pulled out printed bank records, her hands trembling as she spread them on my kitchen table. "Pool maintenance contract for $8,000 monthly." But I looked up the company, Maintenance Solutions LLC. It was incorporated 3 weeks after Constance became HOA president. The business address, a UPS mailbox. My blood ran cold. Shell companies were the bread and butter of every financial crime I'd investigated. Someone was embezzling HOA funds through fake vendors, and I was betting it wasn't some random board member. "Madison," I said carefully, "how long has this been going on?" 18 months, maybe longer." She pointed to another line item. "Landscape emergency repairs, $12,000 last quarter." "But look at our neighborhood. When's the last time you saw major landscape work?" I spent that afternoon cross-referencing the financial records with surveillance techniques I'd perfected tracking cartel money. The pattern was beautiful in its simplicity. Inflate legitimate expenses by 300%. Route payments through shell companies. Pocket the difference. Total estimated theft over $70,000. The Blackwoods weren't just bullying neighbors for kicks. They were running a systematic embezzlement operation, and anyone who asked financial questions got the police harassment treatment. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd picked a fight with someone who'd spent 15 years following money trails through criminal organizations. Time to turn the hunters into the hunted. The next week, Constance declared total war. Monday morning, I'm helping Jake with fractions when Elena storms through the door, looking like she'd survived a coordinated attack. 3 city inspectors, she announces, slamming a stack of violation notices on our granite countertop. Grass height, mailbox angle, garbage can placement, $500 in fines, all scheduled while we were both at work. The citations feel expensive. Thick card stock with raised city seals that probably cost more to print than most people's weekly groceries. I scanned the timestamps. 9:15 a.m., 9:30 a.m., 9:45 a.m. Military precision T. Iming. Anonymous complaints, Elena continues, collapsing into a chair. The grass inspector said our lawn was exactly 1/4 in over-regulation height. Who measures grass with that kind of precision? Martha Stewart. Sophie looks up from her cereal, confusion clouding her 12-year-old face. "Mom, why is everyone being mean to us? Did we do something wrong?" That question hits me like a physical blow. My daughter shouldn't have to wonder why adults are targeting our family. This stops now. That evening, I deployed every surveillance skill the FBI had taught me. From my bedroom window, I watched Brent's patrol car cruise past 4 times in 3 hours, way outside normal patrol patterns. Each pass accompanied by his searchlights sweeping our property like we're escaped convicts. Around 11 p.m., he parks at the corner and approaches our mailbox with a flashlight. The smell of night-blooming jasmine fills the air as I watch through my scope. Yeah, I kept some FBI toys while he photographs our house numbers and tests mailbox stability. But Brent made a crucial mistake. He didn't notice my newly installed security system. Military-era cameras with infrared capability, the same equipment I'd used to document cartel operations in El Paso. Every late-night wellness check was being recorded in courtroom quality detail. In organized crime investigations, we always said, let the criminals document their own illegal activity. While building my harassment file, Elena discovered the smoking gun. Mar, cuss, you need to see this, she calls from the computer. She's scrolling through the neighborhood Facebook group, mapping 6 months of posts. What emerges makes my federal prosecutor instincts sing. Systematic targeting of anyone questioning HOA finances. The Hendersons questioned a $15,000 emergency roof repair last spring. 2 weeks later, police complaints nobody else heard. Jim Santos asked for competitive bidding on maintenance contracts. Next month, code enforcement harassment about working on neighbors' cars. Dorothy Brighton suggested financial audits. Suddenly, her bird feeders became pest violations. They're running a protection racket, I tell Elena, the pattern crystal clear. Question the money. Get harassed until you shut up or flee. Tuesday afternoon, Tyler calls with intelligence that changes everything. Madison found the smoking gun, he whispers. Constance has been writing checks to herself through fake companies. We're talking federal embezzlement. That evening, they sneak over with evidence that would make any prosecutor weep with joy. Bank statements showing systematic theft, $73,000 stolen through shell companies and inflated contracts. Here's the kicker. Madison says, pointing to co-signer lines on fraudulent checks. Officer Blackwood's signature. He's not just muscle, he's an active co-conspirator. I'm photographing evidence when my surveillance system alerts me to motion. Through the front window, I watch Brent approach with unusual confidence. Constance, trailing behind with her phone out for another incident recording. Time for my countermove. I open the door before he knocks, security camera prominently visible on my doorframe.
Evening, Officer Blackwood. I assume you're here about the anonymous complaints.
His swagger falters. What complaints? The ones that triggered today's coordinated inspection blitz, I say calmly, holding up the citations. Interesting timing, all scheduled during work hours when we couldn't witness the measurements. Behind him, Constance's smirk wavers as she realizes I'm not intimidated anymore. Actually, I continue, since you're here officially, I'd like to report some crimes. Financial fraud, conspiracy to commit embezzlement, and abuse of authority under color of law. Brent's face goes white. You can't prove anything. That's when I smile and hold up Madison's evidence folder. Actually, I can. Bank records, fraudulent invoices, shell company documentation, everything a federal prosecutor needs for conspiracy charges. The sound of Constance's phone hitting concrete echoes through the evening air as she realizes their comfortable corruption kingdom just became a federal investigation. Oh, and Officer Blackwood, I add, watching both of them backing toward their house. My security cameras have been recording every illegal late-night visit, high-defin video with timestamps. The FBI loves that kind of evidence. As they retreat, I can practically smell their panic, mixing with the evening air thick with jaw, smine, and the distant chlorine scent from the pool I still wasn't allowed to use. But not for much longer. The hunters had just become the hunted Wednesday night 2 a.m. I'm drowning in HOA formation documents when my coffee-stained eyes hit something that makes me nearly fall off my chair. Page 47 of the original development agreement, buried deeper than Jimmy Hoffa, contains a clause that changes everything. Emergency management transfer. In the event of financial misconduct, fraud, or breach of fiduciary duty by the HOA board, Pinnacle Properties LLC retains permanent easement rights to assume immediate management control of all common areas and community governance. The paper feels rough under my fingertips as I read it 3 times, the smell of midnight coffee mixing with the musty scent of old legal documents. This is bigger than finding a needle in a haystack. This is finding the needle has a nuclear warhead attached. The original developer built an ejector seat for corrupt boards. Cross-referencing this with Madison's evidence makes my FBI heart sing. $73,000 in embezzlement definitely qualifies as breach of fiduciary duty. Hell, it probably qualifies for its own federal task force. I dig into public records like I'm tracking cartel shell companies. Pinnacle Properties owned by Harrison Webb, 61-year-old developer who lost $2.3 million when our subdivision's original board botched a construction defect lawsuit in 2018. Talk about motivation to prevent future board corrupt. Ion. Thursday morning I call Pinnacle expecting corporate runaround. Instead, Webb answers personally. "Mr. Dalton," he says after I explain everything, "I've been waiting 6 years for someone to find that clause. Honestly, thought I'd buried it too deep. Turns out Webb's been quietly monitoring HOA finances since day one, waiting for exactly this kind of misconduct. That easement was my insurance policy against board members, treating community funds like their personal casino. How fast can you activate it? Give me bulletproof evidence and corporate management takes over in 2 weeks." He says, "My legal team's been polishing this nuclear option since 2019. The magnitude hits me like a freight train. Corporate takeover doesn't just remove Constance, it eliminates her entire power structure. No more board presidency, no more selective enforcement, no more weaponizing badges against families." That afternoon, Webb arrives in his Tesla looking exactly like Central Casting ordered successful developer, tailored suit, titanium watch, and the quiet confidence of someone who actually owns things instead of just pretending to. $73,000 in embezzlement, he says, scanning Madison's bank records spread across my dining table, shell companies, fake invoices, spousal conspiracy. This is prosecutorial Christmas morning. His corporate attorney, Patricia Vance, reviews everything with surgical precision. Financial misconduct threshold clearly exceeded. Emergency transfer paperwork can be filed tomorrow. But Webb drops the real bombshell. "Mr. Dalton, you're not their first victim. I've got a file folder thicker than a phone book. Residents calling corporate because they're too terrified to approach the board." He produces documentation that makes my blood boil. 2 years of harassment complaints. The Hendersons, Santos family, Mrs. Brighton, the Brooks all reported the identical pattern. Question finances, get badge harassment. "You knew about this systematic corruption?" "Suspected it," Webb admits. "But I needed someone with the skills and spine to gather proof." He grins. Enter retired federal agent with 15 years of take-own experience. His plan is beautiful in its simplicity. Monday night emergency meeting. Full corporate presentation of financial crimes, immediate management transfer activated before witnesses and media. Corporate management answers to state law, not local dictators, Patricia explains. Professional accounting, transparent operations, constitutional rule enforcement. As they leave, Elena emerges from the kitchen where she's been listening. "So, this nightmare actually ends. Better than ends," I tell her. Watching Webb's Tesla disappear down our street, it gets replaced with actual professional management. Monday night, Constance's comfortable kingdom becomes a corporate democracy, and she has no idea what's coming. The hunters were about to become the hunted legally, publicly, and permanently. Friday morning, Webb's corporate headquarters feels like Mission Company. End troll for a space invasion. Florida ceiling windows overlook the city. The mahogany conference table could seat a small dictatorship, and the smell of expensive coffee mixed with leather chairs reminds me of FBI strategy sessions. Except this time we're planning a suburban coup instead of a cartel takedown. Webb's assembled his corporate Navy SEALs, attorney Patricia Vance, forensic accountant David Kim, and private investigator Sarah Mitchell. These people don't just look professional, they radiate the kind of competence that makes corrupt board members consider witness protection programs. Ladies and gentlemen, Webb begins spreading architectural plans like a general planning D-Day. Monday night, we perform surgical removal of a suburban cancer. David Kim cracks his laptop, and the financial crimes make everyone whistle in appreciation. 73,000 improvable embezzlement, but the real damage includes ghost contractors, phantom employees, and emergency repairs that mysteriously coincide with the Blackwoods Caribbean vacation photos on Facebook. Patricia handles legal strategy with surgical precision. Emergency management transfer requires community presentation, not backroom board votes. We're talking public execution with maximum witnesses. Sarah Mitchell, who could probably intimidate a Navy SEAL, outlines the physical trap. Community Center Monday, 7 p.m. Professional AV equipment for maximum humiliation. Every fraudulent check projected in IMAX quality detail. I'm studying the layout when Webb drops his nuclear option. Channel 7's Amanda Cross will broadcast live. Nothing says accountability like having your financial crimes on the evening news. The plan unfolds like choreographed warfare, evidence presentation coordinated with media coverage, legal authority, and community testimony. By Monday night, the Blackwoods Kingdom becomes a professionally managed democracy. What about retaliation, I ask, thinking like someone who's watched desperate criminals do stupid things. Cornered narcissists tend toward kamikaze tactics. Sarah grins with predatory satisfaction. Off-duty security, direct police dispatch, emergency protocols if they lose their minds. She pauses. Plus, federal agents have certain protective reflexes. Saturday afternoon, I'm installing surveillance equipment that would make the NSA jealous. Elena finds me surrounded by enough electronics to launch a satellite. Marcus, she says, examining cameras that could spot Anat's eyelashes. This looks like you're planning to document alien contact. Close, I tell her, connecting wireless feeds that'll record from 12 different angles. I'm documenting the public autopsy of a suburban dictatorship. Every reaction, every confession, every moment of beautiful justice. During organized crime investigations, I'd learned that evidence quality determines conviction rates. Multiple camera angles, backup audio feeds, redundant recording systems, the difference between probably guilty and 20-year federal sentencing. Sunday evening brings psychological warfare. I position myself obviously in the front yard, testing equipment and making calls. Let them see preparation. Let them wonder what tsunami is approaching their comfortable corruption. From my surveillance post, I watch Constance pacing like a caged panther, phone glued to her ear. Brent's patrol car hasn't moved from their driveway, probably calling in sick Monday. Smart. Too bad he's about 2 years too late. That night, Tyler and Madison rehearse their witness testimony. Bank evidence provides the prosecution foundation, but personal impact sells the emotional story. Keep it simple, I coach them, using interrogation techniques that had flipped cartel money launderers. Numbers convict, but fear motivates. Talk about being afraid in your own neighborhood. Madison practices walking through financial crimes with banker precision. Pool maintenance shouldn't cost $8,000 monthly unless we're cleaning the fountains at Versailles. Her presentation reveals the beautiful simplicity of their scam. Inflate legitimate expenses by 300%. Create shell companies for fake invoicing. Pocket the difference, the kind of amateur-hour financial fraud that makes federal prosecutors smile in their sleep. For viewers at home, the takeaway becomes crystal clear. Always verify contractor legitimacy through state business registration databases before approving major expenditures. One simple search could have exposed this entire operation 18 months ago. Monday afternoon, Webb's team arrives with broadcast quality equipment, professional lighting, multiple camera angles, wireless microphones, and projection screens that will display every fraudulent transaction in courtroom detail. The sound of equipment cases opening echoes through the community center, like artillery being positioned. Extension cords snake across the floor. Cameras lock into position, and the smell of electrical equipment warming up fills the air like the scent of approaching victory. Dorothy Brighton appears with a manila folder thick as a phone book. "Mr. Dalton, I documented everything for 2 years. Every harassment incident, every selective enforcement, every family that moved away because they couldn't take it anymore." "Mrs. Brighton," I tell her, "tonight you might be our star witness." 6:30 p.m. arrives with the texture of electricity before a thunderstorm. The community center fills beyond capacity, residents who'd been invisible for months emerging from hiding, sensing that tonight justice finally gets served with professional presentation skills. The Blackwoods arrive at 6:45, Constance clutching her ceremonial gavel like a drowning woman grabbing driftwood. Brent sweating bullets despite aggressive air conditioning. They have absolutely no idea what's about to hit them. Showtime. The Blackwoods walked into that community center like they owned the world. They had no idea they were about to lose everything. Constance struts to the head table in her designer blaz. That familiar smug smile plastered across her face. Behind her, Brent takes position near the back exit. Classic intimidation positioning I'd seen corrupt cops use in a dozen cities. The clink of metal folding chairs and nervous whispers fill the air as residents settle into seats they probably hadn't occupied in years. "Good evening, everyone," Constance announces, banging her gavel like she's calling a royal court to order. "We have several routine matters to discuss tonight." Routine, right? If routine includes having your financial crimes broadcast on live television. That's when Webb stands up from the front row, his three-piece suit and corporate confidence cutting through the suburban theater like a sword through tissue paper. "Actually, Constance, we have some urgent business to address first." Her smile falters for exactly 2 seconds before snapping back into place. "I'm sorry you are. Harrison Webb, Pinnacle Properties. I believe you're familiar with our emergency management easement clause." The color drains from Constance's face like someone pulled a plug. Around the room, residents lean forward. Most had never heard of any easement clause, but the term emergency management sounds promising to people who'd been living under HOA tyranny. "I'm not sure what you're referring to," she stammers, her voice losing its usual authority. Webb nods to Patricia Vance, who produces a legal document thick enough to stop bullets. Section 4.7 of the original development agreement. Urgency management transfer in cases of financial misconduct or breach of fiduciary duty. That's when David Kim stands and the real show begins. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announces, "we're here tonight because your HOA board has embezzled over $73,000 through fraudulent contracts and shell companies." The room erupts. Gasps, angry mutters, chairs scraping against linoleum as people turn to stare at Constance like she's grown a second head. The smell of fresh panic sweat mingles with industrial floor cleaner and the electric tension of a crowd realizing they've been robbed. "That's preposterous," Constance shouts, her composure cracking like ice in summer heat. This is clearly some kind of coordinated attack. But Kim's already firing up the projection system. Bank statements appear on the wall in high-defin glory. Checks made out to Maintenance Solutions LLC for $8,000 monthly. Pool cleaning that costs more than most people's mortgages. Maintenance Solutions LLC, Kim explains with surgical precision, was incorporated 3 weeks after Mrs. Blackwood became president. Business address, a UPS mailbox, no employees, no equipment, no actual services provided. That's when Constance played her desperate trump card. "Officer Blackwood," she screams, pointing at the crowd like she's directing traffic. "These people are trespassing on HOA property. I want them arrested for disrupting official business. Brent steps forward, hand on his weapon, voice booming with artificial authority. Everyone needs to disperse immediately. You're interfering with official HOA governance. The crowd begins to murmur nervously, decades of conditioning to fear police authority kicking in automatically. Some residents actually start gathering their things, the old intimidation tactics still working their magic. But I remain seated, phone recording, watching this performance with the calm patience of someone who spent 15 years observing criminals dig their own graves. Because what the Blackwoods don't know is that I've been silently preparing for exactly this moment. Tyler Brooks stands up from the middle section, his bank evidence folder clutched and shaking hands. Officer Blackwood, your signature is on the fraudulent checks. You're not law enforcement here. You're a co-conspirator. Brent's face cycles through panic colors. You're interfering with a police investigation. What investigation? Amanda Cross calls out from the media section, her camera crew capturing every desperate lie. We contacted your department. There's no active investigation on file. That's when Constance completely lost her composure. You people don't understand, she shrieks, pointing at the crowd like an angry dictator. We've worked for years to maintain standards. We've protected property values. We've kept out the undesirable elements. The racist undertones hang in the air like smoke. Several residents exchange shocked glances, suddenly understanding that their HOA president wasn't just corrupt, she was systematically discriminatory. But her meltdown wasn't finished. And you, she screams, pointing directly at me. You've been nothing but trouble since day one, questioning authority, recording officers, turning neighbors against legitimate governance. I stand up slowly, my voice calm and measured. Constance, I've been documenting systematic corruption and civil rights violations, every harassment visit, every fraudulent check, every abuse of authority. Behind me, I noticed Dorothy Brighton, Tyler Brooks, and Jim Santos, all standing in silent solidarity. The intimidated neighbors who'd been afraid to speak out for 2 years, finally finding courage in numbers. The sound of Constance's phone hitting the floor echoes through the sudden silence like a gavel of justice. But the real revelation was still coming. The silence after Constance's phone hit the floor lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then all hell broke loose. This is a setup, Brent roars, his police training collapsing into pure desperation. These people have been planning this attack for weeks. They're coordinating against legitimate authority. He starts pacing like a caged animal, hand never leaving his weapon, sweat stains spreading across his uniform despite the aggressive air conditioning. The metallic taste of adrenaline fills the room as residents realize they're watching a 20-year police career implode in real time. Officer Blackwood, Amanda Cross calls out, her camera trained on his meltdown. Are you threatening to arrest residents? For exposing financial crimes? I'm maintaining order, he shouts back, jabbing his finger at the crowd. These people are disturbing the peace, creating public disturbances. I have authority to actually, you don't. The voice comes from the back of the room, cold and professional. FBI agent Lisa Rodriguez steps through the entrance, her federal credentials visible, flanked by 2 agents in suits that scream, "Your local corruption just became a federal case." The temperature in the room drops 10 degrees. Residents who'd never seen real federal authority watch as Agent Rodriguez approaches Brent with the calm confidence of someone who eats corrupt cops for breakfast. Officer Blackwood, she announces, her voice carrying the weight of 15 years investigating police misconduct. You're being investigated for deprivation of rights under color of law, conspiracy to commit fraud, and abuse of authority. Brent's face cycles through every stage of criminal panic. You can't just, actually, we can. Rodriguez continues, producing a thick folder. We've been monitoring the situation for 3 weeks. Every late-night harassment visit, every fraudulent document, Every abuse of your badge has been documented and forwarded to federal prosecutors. Behind her, the second agent begins photographing the evidence still projected on the wall. Bank statements, shell company documents, fraudulent invoices glowing in high-definition detail for everyone to witness. Constance makes one final catastrophic mistake. This is persecution, she screams, standing on her chair like she's addressing a political rally. We are respected members of this community. My husband is a decorated police officer. We don't deserve this treatment from outside agitators and federal terrorists. The words federal terrorists echo through the room like a gunshot, calling FBI agents terrorists while under federal investigation. Even IWSE at the sheer stupidity. Agent Rodriguez turns to Constance with the kind of smile that makes career criminals request protective custody. Ma'am, threatening federal agents during an ongoing investigation adds additional charges to your growing list. But Constance isn't done destroying herself. I demand to know who started this investigation. She shrieks, pointing wildly around the room. Someone has been feeding you lies. Someone has been coordinating this attack on legitimate community leadership. That's my cue. I stand up slowly, letting the moment build like the climax of a symphony. 15 years of undercover work has taught me the power of perfect timing. Actually, Constance, I say, my voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. I started this investigation 3 weeks ago when you decided to target my family. The room goes dead silent, except for the hum of camera equipment capturing this historic confession. My name is Agent Miles Dalton, FBI Financial Crimes Unit retired. For the past month, I've been conducting a federal investigation into systematic corruption, civil rights violations, and organized harassment in this community. The gasps from residents mix with the sound of Constance's world imploding. Several neighbors turn to stare at me like I've just revealed I'm actually Superman. Every police visit, every harassment incident, every fraudulent financial transaction has been documented with federal quality evidence. I continue enjoying the look of absolute horror spreading across both Blackwood's faces. Wire fraud, conspiracy, deprivation of rights under color of law. These charges carry minimum 15-year federal sentences. Brent actually staggers backward, his hand falling away from his weapon as the magnitude hits him. 20 years of police work, pension, reputation, freedom, all gone because he couldn't resist helping his wife play dictator. You can't do this to us, Constance screams, but her voice cracks on every word. We're pillars of this community. We've maintained standards. We've protected property values. Webb stands up from the front row, his corporate smile sharp enough to cut glass. Actually, Constance, you've been systematically robbing this community while terrorizing residents with police harassment. Effective immediately, Pinnacle Properties assumes management control under emergency easement authority. Patricia Vance approaches the head table with legal documents that sound like thunder when they hit the wooden surface. Mrs. Blackwood, you're hereby relieved of all HOA authority. Corporate management begins tomorrow morning. The sound of handcuffs clicking echoes through the community center as Agent Rodriguez places Brent under arrest. His Miranda rights mix with the excited whispers of residents, finally understanding that justice isn't just possible. It's happening right in front of them. Constance collapses into her chair, the fight draining out of her like air from a punctured tire. 2 years of comfortable corruption ended in one spectacular public implosion. As federal agents escort the Blackwoods toward the exit, I catch Dorothy Brighton wiping tears from her eyes. Tyler Brooks grins like he's won the lottery. Jim Santos actually applauds. The suburban dictators were finally dethroned, and tomorrow my kids could swim in peace. The community center had transformed into something between a courtroom and a theater. Every seat filled with residents who'd spent years living in fear, now watching their tormentors face federal justice in real time. Agent Rodriguez reads Brent his rights while news cameras capture every word. You have the right to remain silent Anything you say can and will be used against you in a federal court of law. The same constitutional protections he denied countless neighbors now protecting him from his own stupidity. But Constance wasn't finished destroying herself. "This is a conspiracy," she shrieks, pointing at the FBI agents like they're invading aliens. "Marcus Dalton is a criminal. He threatened police officers. He's been harassing us for weeks." Agent Rodriguez pauses mid-arrest to stare at Constance with the kind of expression reserved for particularly stupid criminals. "Ma'am, are you seriously accusing a retired FBI agent of harassment while you're being arrested for systematic corruption?" The room erupts in nervous laughter. After 2 years of living under Blackwood tyranny, residents are finally witnessing the beautiful spectacle of bullies getting exactly what they deserve. Amanda Cross steps forward with her microphone, her camera crew capturing every moment for the evening news. "Mrs. Blackwood, how do you respond to evidence showing $73,000 in embezzled HOA funds?" "Those charges are completely fabricated." Constance screams, her designer blazer, now wrinkled and sweat-stained. "We've done nothing but serve this community with dedication. And ma'am," David Kim interrupts, his forensic accountant precision cutting through her hysteria, "your signature appears on 47 fraudulent checks. The bank records are incontrovertible. Behind the projection screen, every financial crime glows in high-defin detail. Fake invoices, shell company payments, inflated contracts, 2 years of systematic theft displayed like evidence in a federal courtroom." Tyler Brooks stands up, his voice shaking with emotion and adrenaline. "Mrs. Blackwood, your husband threatened to arrest me for asking about pool maintenance costs. He came to my house at midnight with flashlights and intimidation tactics. That's normal police procedure," Brent shouts from his handcuffs. "Apparently you nowhere that admitting to harassment makes things worse, not better." Dorothy Brighton rises from her chair with dignity that makes the entire room respect her courage. "For 2 years, I was afraid to speak at meetings, afraid to question expenses, afraid to use community amenities I pay for. That's not normal anything. That's terrorism. The word terrorism hangs in the air like smoke from an explosion. Domestic terrorism by badge-wearing bullies who'd turned suburban life into a protection racket." Webb approaches the het with corporate documents that rustle like leaves in a windstorm. "Ladies and gentlemen, effective immediately, Pinnacle Properties assumes emergency management control, professional accounting, transparent governance, and equal treatment for all residents." The applause starts slowly, Dorothy Brighton clapping first, then Tyler Brooks, then Jim Santos, then the entire room erupting in cheers that sound like freedom itself. But I'm not done yet. "Constance," I say, standing to address her directly while cameras capture every word, "you made one critical mistake when you decided to target my family." She glares at me with pure hatred, mascara running down her cheeks like black tears. "You've destroyed everything we built here." "No," I reply, letting 15 years of federal authority settle in my voice. "I've restored constitutional rights to a community you turned into your personal kingdom." Agent Rodriguez steps forward with the kind of smile that makes prosecutors request over time. "Mrs. Blackwood, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, embezzlement, and civil rights violations under federal statute 18 U.S.C. 242. The sound of a second pair of handcuffs echoes through the community center like a gavel of justice. Amanda Cross turns to her camera, the community center chaos providing perfect background for her live report. This is Amanda Cross reporting from Willowbrook Estates, where federal agents have arrested an HOA president and police officer for systematic corruption that terrorized residents for over 2 years. As the Blackwoods are escorted toward the exit, Constance makes one final attempt to salvage her reputation. "You people will regret this," she screams over her shoulder. "Property values will collapse. Crime will skyrocket. You need us to maintain standards." That's when I deliver my mic drop moment. "Constance," I call out, my voice carrying over the crowd. "The only crime problem this neighborhood had was you and your husband. Constitutional rights aren't crime. They're justice." The applause is deafening. Residents who'd been afraid to speak for 2 years finally understanding that they have rights, they have voices, and they have the power to hold corrupt authority accountable. Through the community center windows, I watched the patrol car that had terrorized my family driving away with its owner in the back seat wearing handcuffs. Tomorrow morning, my kids could finally swim in peace. Justice served, federal style. 6 months L. Later, I'm sitting by the community pool, watching Sophie and Jake cannonball into the deep end, without a care in the world. The sound of their laughter mixing with splashing water is better than any symphony ever written. The transformation of Willowbrook Estates has been nothing short of miraculous. Webb's corporate management delivered exactly what they promised: professional oversight, transparent finances, and governance that actually serves residents instead of personal egos. Monthly financial reports get posted online for everyone to see. Board meetings happen with actual democratic procedures. And amazingly, when you eliminate embezzlement, HOA fees dropped 30% while community services improved dramatically. The federal prosecution moved faster than anyone expected. Constance pleaded guilty to 18 counts of fraud and embezzlement, earning herself 8 years in federal prison. Brent got 12 years for conspiracy and deprivation of rights under color of law. Turns out federal judges don't appreciate police officers who weaponize their badges against innocent families. The community recovered every stolen dollar plus federal damages totaling $150,000. But Webb did something that surprised everyone. He donated the entire settlement to establish the Blackwood Corruption Memorial Scholarship Fund. $25,000 annually for local students studying criminal justice, public administration, or civil rights law. Turn their crimes into something positive, he told me. Let their corruption fund the next generation of people who will fight corruption. Dorothy Brighton got elected as our new HOA president by the largest margin in subdivision history. Her first act, establishing monthly coffee with neighbors sessions where residents can voice concerns without fear of retaliation. Her second act, installing security cameras around common areas to prevent future abuse of authority. The ripple effects spread beyond our neighborhood. 3 surrounding subdivisions requested Webb's management company after their own residents discovered similar corruption patterns. The City Council passed new ordinances requiring HOA financial audits and resident oversight committees. Our case became a textbook example in law enforcement me's nationwide. Tyler and Madison Brooks became unlikely heroes, their banking expertise helping 2 other communities expose embezzlement schemes. Madison left her corporate job to become a forensic accountant specializing in HOA financial crimes. Apparently, suburban corruption is a growth industry. Jim Santos expanded his auto shop and hired 3 employees, including 2 neighbors who'd been blacklisted by the Blackwoods. His backyard shed, the one that caused so much code enforcement harassment, now houses a community tool library where neighbors can borrow equipment for home projects. Elena started a neighborhood first aid training program, teaching CPR and basic medical skills to families who'd never had access to professional healthcare guidance. Sophie and Jake made friends with kids whose parents had been too afraid to let them socialize during the Blackwood regime. For me personally, retirement finally feels like actual retirement. No more surveillance cameras needed. No more federal investigations in suburban driveways. I've been consulting with Webb's legal team, helping other communities identify and document corruption patterns. Turns out 15 years of FBI experience translates perfectly to suburban justice advocacy. The community garden we planted on the former Blackwood property, they lost their house to federal asset forfeit, produces enough vegetables to supply our local food bank year-round. Every tomato and cucumber grown on that soil represents democracy replacing dictatorship. Last week, Amanda Cross won a regional journalism award for her investigative series, Suburban Corruption Exposed. Her follow-up reports helped uncover similar schemes in 4 other Texas communities. The story that started with my kids being denied pool access became a statewide movement for HOA transparency and accountability. But the sweetest victory comes every evening at dinner, when my family talks about normal suburban problems, homework, soccer practice, weekend barbecues, instead of harassment, intimidation, and federal investigations. As the sun sets over our peaceful neighborhood, I watch kids playing in the pool that their families pay for and actually get to use. Parents chatting without fear of eavesdropping. Neighbors helping neighbors instead of reporting on each other. This is what America should feel like. Constitutional rights respected, corruption exposed, and communities governed by consent instead of fear.